I'll start with my conclusion. The idiocy of superliminal wisely demonstrates what we look for from short games, which is, in a certain sense, the sublime. That might sound a little crazy, but let me explain what I mean. Superliminal is a game I personally like quite a bit. As you'll find out, its idiocy isn't a bad thing at all, but we'll get to that. Superliminal is a first-person puzzle platformer in which you go through a series of dreams in an attempt to wake up. It seems you've enrolled as the subject of a sleep study program that's supposed to help you feel less hopeless, depressed, and impotent. Sounds great, right? Except something's gone wrong. You find out from a series of announcements and radio recordings from Dr. Glenn Pierce that you've somehow fallen too deeply asleep, that something's wrong, you're on your own, lost in your own subconscious. You find yourself stuck in rooms that seemingly have no exit, except you make an exit route by moving and manipulating objects around you. Your main action in Superliminal, aside from jumping, is clicking objects to hold onto them, rotate them, duplicate them, and most of all, enlarge or shrink them. You do the latter by using forced perspective. In Superliminal, you literally change things by looking at them differently. Or, as the immortal Bob Dylan once said, "Windows was shaking all night in my dreams. Everything was exactly the way that it seems. Woke up this morning, and I looked at the same old page. Same old rat race, life in the same old cage." So, given the importance of objects in Superliminal, let's take a look at its key objects and what they mean in the context of the game. You may be asking why this possibly matters. Who cares what the objects are? Well, I do, because this is a dream, and dreams express themselves through repetition and variation in the objects and actions they depict. Dreams constitute a sort of fluid symbolic code, and the objects used here are loaded with meaning. So let's get started on the objects that constitute Superliminal. First, we have chess. What does chess mean? Chess is obviously a game played on a checkered board that you play against yourself, a computer, or a person. Chess is typically thought of as a very sophisticated type of game, one which conjures images of intelligence and mastery, notions which Superliminal seems to want to melt away, calling our attention to the interchangeability of pieces, the overwhelming sameness of the board's squares. The pieces seem useless. You're totally alone here, there's no one to play against, and even if you were to play against yourself, you're never in a position where you have the opportunity to actually play the game, move the pieces as you should. Nonetheless, chess haunts the game, not merely in the repeated instances of encountering large chess pieces themselves, but also in the chessboard pattern appearing on various blocks. Blocks being, of course, another main object and symbol in the game. What do blocks mean? Blocks are toys, usually played with by children. They are a tool with which a child can build anything they'd like. Moreover, blocks traditionally introduce children not only to the pleasure of building, but also to the thrill of destroying. Think of a child delighting in knocking over a block tower. Change happens, and it can constitute either addition or subtraction. This is one of the stupid and wise life lessons of blocks. And speaking of numbers, blocks also aid children in the development of numerical and verbal literacy. Numbers and letters are often inscribed on the sides of blocks. This makes blocks effective learning tools because they literalize, physicalize concepts. It's easier to feel like you have a, quote, handle on numbers and letters when you can literally hold them in your hand. Dice, the next object on our list, are a certain kind of block held in the hand then let go. Unlike blocks, they teach us nothing and grant us no mastery over information. Rather, in being used in games of chance, dice show us how much we don't know, how often we're at the mercy of various forces outside our own control, forces much larger than our own insignificant lives. Forces like change, randomness. There are no letters on the sides of dice, though in Superliminal there are occasionally illustrations, like a chess piece, or our next object, an apple. Apples are of course associated with knowledge, paradigm-shifting knowledge. Most famously, the apple is responsible for giving Adam and Eve that original fateful perspective shift in the Garden of Eden. As the story goes, in Genesis, although they were just as naked before they ate the apple as after, it was only after they ate the apple that they saw themselves as naked and felt shame. Their knowledge changed how they saw each other and themselves. Thus, the apple is associated with a change in perspective. Perhaps the most radical change in perspective in literary history. The end of innocence, the beginning of knowledge. Like the apple, our next object could also be associated with the natural world. The staggering vistas of wide skies and clouds that abound throughout Superliminal. Seemingly just out of reach, right in front of us, immediately after the next door. The open natural world acts as a symbol of escape from the endlessly repeated mundanity of everyday existence, an escape from the traps of our boring dreams. As William Wordsworth once famously said, praising the appeal of nature and how it's superior to our modern lives, our supposedly better, more scientific modern lives in which we're confined to the indoors, he said, "The world is too much with us. Late and soon, getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon. This sea that bears her bosom to the moon, the winds that will be howling at all hours, and are upgathered now like sleeping flowers. For this, for everything, we are out of tune. It moves us not. Great God, I'd rather be a pagan suckled in a creed outworn, so might I, standing on this pleasant lea, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn, have sights of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his wreath torn." In other words, Wordsworth would rather be stupid and foolish than remain alienated from nature. This is a theme to which we'll return in just a minute. To linger on the natural world for just a moment longer, it's curious to me how large, enormous even, these natural landscapes seem to be in the game. Size is clearly important to Superliminal, and it seems worth noting that in the last hour or so of the game, one of the main changes is that you become very, very small, entering and exiting toy houses, everything bigger than you. Once again, entering into a wise humility, the wise state of being overwhelmed, dwarfed by everything, a state to which we usually only have access as children, and which we regain as adults only by standing before nature. You feel this way in front of a big cliff, a big wave, a thunderstorm. That's why people go to Niagara Falls or the Grand Canyon, to be in front of something so massive it makes you feel, well, as if you're in contact with the sublime. And I don't use that word casually. This state of being overwhelmed or dwarfed taps into what Immanuel Kant described as the sublime, namely the deep impression of witnessing a majesty almost beyond comprehension, witnessing a force significantly larger than your own. It's akin to seeing something beautiful except for the sense of danger or imperilment. Or as Rainer Maria Rilke once said when describing the beauty of this kind of sublime, "Beauty is nothing but the beginning of terror." You know what's really terrifying though? Thirst. A thirst that can be quenched by our next main object of Superliminal, soda. Coming in cans and soda fountain cups, soda here is an expression of consumerism and the blitheness with which goods become interchangeable. This is what Wordsworth was alluding to earlier when he said that getting and spending we lay waste our powers. When everything is interchangeable, nothing gives you that feeling of the sublime. The sodas from the vending machine aren't even given brand names, just colors. And of course you can't tell what's inside the fountain drink cup from the outside. It could be anything in there. That's the common refrain about Coke and Pepsi both just being sugar water. The only difference is in how they're marketed. The only difference is in how they are perceived. And then, very prominently, there are the fire extinguishers and fire alarms. Things which should only be used in emergencies, but which here result in nothing. You pull the lever and there's no alarm that goes off. You use the fire extinguisher, but there's only a little bit in there. It's not really enough to fully put out a fire. This reinforces the sense of total insignificance in our protagonist's life. Nothing matters to him. Nothing is an emergency. There's no fire beneath him that's going to get him to change his life. There's no such thing as a life-changing emergency. Nothing will change. It'll just be the same old thing again and again. It's all just life. Again, this is what Bob Dylan was talking about earlier when he said, "Same old rat race, life in the same old cage." Finally, we have the last object worthy of attention in defining the world of Superliminal. The rooms themselves, which are all essentially different versions of each other. Although the environments here are superficially varied, going from a hotel to an office to a bizarre, horrifying quasi-hospital building to an art gallery to conference rooms, they are really all the same room. They're all rented rooms, places you'd only be because you have to be there, places you pay to be for work or leisure, and places you'll only be temporarily. This note of transience is accentuated also by the presence of suitcases. Everything about these spaces is temporary and unlived in. The suite, in which you continually wake up Groundhog Day style, has the semantic flexibility to apply both to a hotel suite and an office suite. Why does Superliminal want to emphasize this similarity between a hotel and an office? Because there's not much of a difference between the two. In either case, they are artificially staged locations, stressing anonymity and the fact of money changing hands. As you move through all these hallways with their bends and circuitous paths, you feel as if you're running around a lab-designed maze, under observation. This sense of being toyed with compounds the protagonist's impression of being utterly powerless and little more than a curiosity, a character in someone else's story. These objects and their thematic resonances make up the atmosphere of Superliminal, which, as you can tell, is a suggestively rich game full of content and symbolism. It is also, though, and most importantly, very, very short. And that is perhaps one of the most important things about it. To answer this question, I'll turn to one of America's greatest writers who hit this nail on the head, having never played a video game in his life. William Faulkner said that he was a novelist because novels were so long he'd be able to get away with having the most things wrong. You see, he explained, a novelist can get a lot of things wrong because a novel is long. A short story writer can get some things wrong because a short story isn't as long as a novel, but a poet can't get anything wrong because poems are very, very short. We learn from this that the shorter something is, the more perfect it has to be. In the case of a poem, it's so short that any imperfections will be immediately noticed. I think from a short game, we're looking for as precise as possible an articulation of what a single, isolated mechanic or conceit can do. The same way in a lot of poems, you're looking for the most that a single, isolated image can do. Brevity typically equates with simplicity, and people yearn for simplicity. It's one of the things they want most. Why? Because simplicity should equate with purity and potency, with wonder. Simplicity should bring you an experience of the sublime. It only takes a second for a tsunami to crash or for lightning to strike right in front of you, but you remember it forever. The shorter a game is, the stronger and more memorable an impression it should leave. One consequence of this is that the simpler a game is, the steeper its competition. Some of the greatest games of all time are the simplest. Your 2D platformer is going toe-to-toe with Super Mario Bros. 3 or Celeste. Your block puzzle game is going toe-to-toe with Tetris. This idea of a ghost rival haunting your game calls to mind a literary concept developed by Harold Bloom called the anxiety of influence. Essentially, this concept suggests that a writer becomes a writer in the following way. They start as a reader who one day finds their favorite writer. For example, let's say a reader of plays discovers Shakespeare and reads Hamlet. Hamlet becomes his favorite play, Shakespeare his favorite writer. And he loves Hamlet and Shakespeare so much that he says to himself, okay, I too would like to be a writer, like Shakespeare, and one day write something very good, like Hamlet. Up to this point, this is simply inspiration. Where Bloom goes from here, though, is fascinating. He suggests that this new writer tries to write something good and something original, but time after time, all his work disappoints him. It all comes off as secondhand Shakespeare, or an unoriginal imitation of Hamlet. The anxiety here is that he can't be his own writer because Shakespeare has already said everything he'd wanted to say. He can't write a new play because Hamlet is already the perfect play. Therefore, in order to make room for himself, this writer has to creatively misread Shakespeare and Hamlet. He has to, as it were, fall out of love with the very thing that made him want to be a writer in the first place. By convincing himself that there is, in fact, something wrong with Shakespeare, something missing from Hamlet, he convinces himself there is space in the literary world for him, some gap in the literary canon that he alone can fill. Harold Bloom based a lot of his theory of the anxiety of influence on the Oedipal complex, and specifically the aspect of it in which the son, in order to rise up the ranks in his life, has to kill his father, symbolically. In other words, the anxiety of influence essentially suggests that the endeavoring creative goes from inspiration to confrontation, fighting their role model to prove that they themselves deserve to have their own seat at the table. So what's the purpose of all that? Well, I'd suggest that any short first-person platforming puzzle game must inevitably contend with Portal and the anxiety of Portal's influence. This is something Superliminal directly invokes at multiple moments. the foundational motif of the exit sign, a person in motion toward a door, calling to mind, of course, the classic Portal logo, the mentions of cubes, the scrawling on various surfaces reminiscent of Ratman's messages, the GLaDOS-like sarcastic female robotic voice punctuating your journey, the elevator concluding each section, and the fact of all of this being some experiment upon the player conducted by a corporation. All of these details directly invoke Portal, and, as it were, throw down the gauntlet. Superliminal is explicitly structurally challenging Portal to a sort of duel, underlining these similarities in order to then bring out in greater relief the ways in which Superliminal is, in fact, very different than Portal. In Portal, your main activity is shooting your portal gun. Your main thematic context is an experience in a brutally cerebral world governed by science, logic, in other words, reality. In Superliminal, you're in a dream within a dream within a dream, and so on. Very far removed from even the wildest kind of speculative physics that would order the world of Portal. Moreover, in Superliminal, you have a relationship with your surrounding objects that is richer. There are more kinds of things with which to interact, more empowered, you can do more things with those objects, and, simply put, more playful. There is a sense in Superliminal not just that you can go from place to place, but that you can literally change things. That's what empowerment is. You can build things up bigger, you can make them smaller. You're a child playing with blocks again, aware of concepts as something visceral, something concrete you can place in the palm of your hand or walk right into. This is the great deviation of Superliminal from the experience of Portal, in which reality was subjugated not to the chaotic variance of dreams, but to the washed-out binaries of abstraction and science. More simply put, Superliminal marshals its motifs, its objects, and their thematic resonances to create a work of art that emphasizes the twin states of childhood: the absurd omnipotence that accompanied experiences of playful creation and destruction, and the humbling encounter with the sublime, which seemed to greet us at every turn as we explored the unforeseen, mysterious, and magnificent natural world around us. Superliminal does all this by emphasizing the physical quality of ideas, when ideas are articulated as objects, i.e., in dreams, by demonstrating the vast forces with which a human soul must contend in an effort to stay vital. Forces like interchangeability, sameness, the deadening flatness of the contemporary corporate world. Well, on second thought, maybe that wasn't overly simply put. To put it again even more simply, or as simply as I can, Superliminal does all the above for one reason: to offer us what Portal doesn't. If Portal is about cleverness and calculation, if it is about the dangers of nihilistic intelligence, then Superliminal is about wisdom. More specifically, the wisdom of idiocy. Again, I'd quote Wordsworth here. "My heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. So it was when my life began, so it is now I am a man. So be it when I shall grow old, or let me die. The child is father of the man, and I could wish my days to be bound each to each by natural piety." Among other things, what Wordsworth is saying here is that the astonishment one feels as a child when beholding even the most mundane events of our natural, everyday world has within it far more wisdom and value than the disillusionment one assumes accompanies maturity. The child is father to the man. Going back to his earlier poem, it's better to be a pagan or a child than it is to be a man of science or an adult, according to Wordsworth, at least. It is better to be surprised constantly. The wisdom of idiocy is very closely related to the sublime of childhood. It's good to walk around always in a state of unknowing, to be surprised, to be shown that you're not looking at something the right way at all, to be continually surprised, to be continually the fool. That is true wisdom. Think of Shakespeare again. The wisest figures in his work are either thought to be crazy, like Hamlet, or a big fat joke, like Falstaff, or literal jesters, like the fool in King Lear. I'd also reference in connection with this idea the entire body of work of Norm Macdonald, a man who found wisdom and joy in playing the fool, enchanted and bewildered merely by observing the world. I'll let him tell the story of his epiphany in his own words.
When I was this is a weird thing that happened to me when I was young.
Yeah.
I don't know if this means anything.
Let's try it.
I remember it, but it was a moment I had that was It wasn't religious or epinephic or anything, but it transformed me to some degree, is that I was always fucking so afraid of everything. And if I went to a store, I'd have to walk around forever before I could even face a person in the store to buy a pack of gum. I don't know why the fuck I was like this.
Yeah.
But anyways, when I was 9, there was we lived in rural Ontario, and there was a blind friend of my dad's that I had to, he said, take him to the store. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I have to take this blind fucker? And I'm already shy and shit. So I'm taking him to the store, and then the fucker wants me to explain everything, describe everything to him.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's some grass over here, and now there's a lamppost, and this guy's all happy. Wow, what about the lamppost? I mean, it's just a lamppost.
Yeah.
So it goes on and on, but something happened to me during, it sounds bizarre, but something happened to me where I was actually, instead of always looking inward, which I think I'd always done before that one time, I was looking outward. Anyways, while I was talking to him, I suddenly had a sort of a hysteria, like I was laughing. I started laughing and stuff. And I don't even know why I'm remembering this, but I started laughing about everything. And everything seemed like very, very funny to me.
This relief from anxiety merely in being surprised and absorbed by the absurd reality of everyday objects. That is the wisdom of idiocy. And this is exactly the state of mind superliminal means to elicit. Someone tortured by inward feelings of stuntedness and anxiety, hopelessness and depression manages to overcome these things by engaging in a directly absurd, playful, and physical way with external objects. The outside world, which, in the space of a dream, bestows a sense of empowerment and agency to the dreamer. In other words, the cure for overthinking, another word for the depressive malaise the protagonist has talked himself into, is to be a wise idiot, someone continually open, surprised, and amused by the nonsensical world of objects around him. This encounter with enormous, all-pervading absurdity is itself a sort of encounter with the sublime. The wisdom of idiocy provides clarity of thought and the opportunity to see things as they truly are, even if what they truly are is just crazy. The world is patently absurd, or, as the Tao Te Ching puts it, the heavens and the earth are not humane. To them all things are straw dogs. The sage is not humane. To him all things are straw dogs. But is not the space between the heavens and the earth itself a bellows, always moving but never exhausted? With every movement more and more emerges. When the instructions are many, blind alleys multiply. Maintain instead the center within. I take it to mean that true wisdom is found in having the same attitude towards the world that the world has towards you, namely bemusement. You'll notice too that this attitude of bemusement doesn't lead to nihilism. The Tao Te Ching doesn't say that all things are straw dogs and therefore there's no point in doing anything. No, instead it says that all things are straw dogs, but this sublime absurdity of life is a source of multiplicity, a source of wonder. Again, it's something scary out of our control. Thus, it's sublime and makes us feel alive and present. The fact that there's no reason anything should be here is nothing less than an opportunity to marvel at the fact that there's anything here in the first place. Like Norm, you can then be so busy laughing you more or less forget to be depressed. All we can do is proceed, guided by a maintained inner center, moving through rooms that all look alike, approaching objects that aren't even really there, until, of course, for no reason, they are. I think Superliminal captures this spirit of bemusement very well, and suggests a heartening and wise counterpoint to the nihilism of Portal.